I think I'm just a simple South Indian boy in a constant state of wonder at the marvels of the world.
Wow.
Very brave work that took the insight of the only group of women in the country, perhaps, who look forward to their period as sex workers, because for those 3 or 4 days, they get a break from their work, and to use that time to kind of reskill them or to give them a path or a possibility of a different type of life for them, but also more importantly for their children. All of us who have the use of both our hands take for granted that simple joy of eating a burger. And the observation that for people who don't have the use of one hand, struggle to conventionally hold a burger, and just that simple moment of simple, easy enjoyment, you can solve for it with a packaging intervention.
As per your wife, your most often used phrase?
A doll. I call her doll, so I use the word doll a lot.
Hello, fellows. Welcome to the next episode of Jagged with Jasravee. You want conversations with thought leaders from the branding, marketing, and the business world? Subscribe to my channel. Conversations that ignite new ideas with rough and sharp edges. Hello, Aditya. I am thrilled to have you on my show.
Hi, Jasravee. Lovely to be here.
Okay. So if I requested you to tweet your profile, what would you say?
I am not a particularly prolific tweeter, but I'll give it a go. I think I'm just a simple South Indian boy in a constant state of wonder at the marvels of the world.
Wow. Wow.
That probably sums it up.
And it opens it up as well, like so many threads to take from there. Okay. And some of them will come towards the end as well, which whenever I talk about, I am like in wonder and rapture, and it's amazing the things that you do. Okay. So we'd be talking about some case studies for our audiences which have been acknowledged and celebrated and really impacted not just the category, but also culture. They're leaving, moving towards positive change without, forcing it or without being pretentious. But before that, would you like to talk about, I've been very curious about unexpected works, how that fuels the entire creative process at DDB Mudra.
Sure. Very happy to talk about the thinking behind unexpected works. As some of your listeners know, perhaps know, the B in DDB is burn bark, right? Doyle Dane burn bark. And by many accounts, this is the person credited with changing advertising and creating a different kind of philosophy around how advertising works. And I guess the kind of the most obvious tribute in popular culture of his impact and influence was in Mad Men. He was the first kind of historical figure from the real world of advertising to make it to Mad Men in the very first season and first couple of episodes. Don Draper and his team are discussing a Volkswagen ad, right? And from there, that tradition of Think Small and Lemon and everything else that followed inspired a whole generation of brilliant thinkers, creative people, strategy folk, just who are passionate about the power of creativity and what it can do to come into that business. Lee Clow, Haggerty, Dan Wyden were all inspired actually by Bernbach and his early work. So in a sense, at DDB, we inherit that and that legacy and carry that legacy going forward. What's also interesting is that in the 60s, the discipline of account planning, designed to kind of draw a connection between creativity and its impact on business, was created by two people are credited with it. One who's a legend at the now Wonderman Thompson, then JWT, and the other from BMP in London, which then is now what became DDB London and is now Adam and Eve London. A great creative agency and institution. And I think that idea, that connection between the power of creativity and the focus on measuring what it actually does, right, or being able to hold it accountable for impact, is what Unexpected Works is about. So Bernbach believed that creativity was the most powerful, or is the most powerful force in business. And then all of the work that people like Les Binet out of our DDB office in London has been doing for a good part of 40 years is to study the science behind the art as much as possible. And that's what Unexpected Works is really about. It's about recognizing that this is an art, but and that creativity has power, but also ensuring that we hold ourselves accountable for the outcomes, whether they are on the business, the brand, in society, or in culture, right? And that's what really Unexpected Works is about.
Yeah, and it's like you said, Aditya, it's one of the biggest force in our business, and even more so today because of this whole technology, artificial intelligence, but creativity, what it can do, how it can energize a brand, the impact, and it's so close to human nature because unexpected really works,
Exactly right.
Yeah. So thank you for explaining that. And I didn't know Les Binet was from the DDB group. His work is really very, very a big contribution to the business because yes, the science behind it is something that we have to keep in mind as a background context.
Yes, Les is probably DDB's best kept secret. I've had the pleasure of meeting him a few times. He's a brilliant man. And what's interesting is a lot of work that Byron Sharp and his team with the Ehrenberg Bass Institute are doing with the How Brands Grow, all of that stuff. The advertising evidence to support that thinking, a lot of it draws from Les's work. So yes, he's very much DDB, and we're proud of him.
Yes, and he's not a secret anymore. Guys, on my channel, you come to know about these things. See, what a moment that was. Okay. So, Aditya, now I would like to talk about brands Stayfree, and I think my audiences will be very curious in terms of how did this whole thinking process start. We know the penetration of sanitary napkins is very low. We know hygiene has become so important. We know women are becoming the center of more power to them and what difference they can make. They are being acknowledged, but yet there is a big gap in terms of the penetration of napkins in the category. And Stayfree, how it's going about, along with Whisper, but it's a unique space that is being created, and it's like the impact is, we have to make a deeper impact. It's like the brand seems to have that commitment. So would you like to share about what were the challenges the brand was facing? How did this whole new campaign, and it's not new, I think there has been a lot of sustained commitment to it, the social experiment. How did this all come about? Because I know there's been a lot of impact.
Yeah, it's a wonderful story and a very personal one as well, right? I mean, I've spent a good part of 2 decades now in this company. And before I took on this role to lead the agency, I spent a lot of time as an account planner, as a strategist. And one of the brands that I cut my teeth on and feel privileged to have been able to shape is Stayfree. And the reason it is special is, of course, there is a whole, there's amazing work that we put out on the brand, work that we're very proud of, but also at a personal level, that the journey as a man, or someone who identifies himself as a man, to engage in a subject of that nature at that age. I was my late 20s, early 30s at that stage, and you think you come from a background which is liberal and progressive, and that you are, reasonably well-read and informed, and come in with that worldview. And then when you are forced to engage with subjects or like menstrual hygiene, and to acknowledge the heartbreaking injustice of just access to a basic right for a woman to be able to be comfortable in her body, to have access to hygiene, and a recognition of how little we had done as a society and as business to address that subject was, at a personal level, extremely important in shaping who I am, and hopefully what I will be for the rest of my life as well. And I think the work on Stayfree, for all of us who are associated with it, including the wonderful people at J&J who have over the last decade helped us put out a certain kind of a body of work that we feel makes it more likely that some of these subjects will be discussed openly, as they should be, and that there will be a commitment to actually change things, one pad at a time or one conversation at a time, is what drives the work. So really, I think the starting point of the work, and I'm assuming you're referencing work like Project Free Period and the work over the last 2 or 3 years that has followed around that whole normalizing period conversations, the work around the lockdown where girls had to confront their first period in close proximity with their family, and the discomfort of that, as you know, with shared bathrooms and enclosed environments during the lockdown, or the more recent work in bringing men into the conversation, fathers for the first time, brothers for the first time. And these are very important and powerful discussions. But what is critical is that it has also helped, in a sense, the whole category move forward in the way in which it portrayed this subject. The silence around it, the taboo around the discussion. Of course, we've got a long, long way to go, but we were trying to, I think in the work that we put out, we're trying with each effort to make it more acceptable to deal with it. So the first piece of work that you saw around normalizing periods, very brave work that took the insight of the only group of women in the country perhaps who look forward to their period as sex workers, because for those 3 or 4 days they get a break from their work, and to use that time to kind of reskill them or to give them a path or a possibility of a different type of life for them, but also more importantly for their children, to see that the world a little bit differently.
Last year, we asked the women of India a question.
So I definitely don't look forward to my periods.
It's irritating, so I don't like my periods, no.
In an inconvenient time of the month.
And then we asked commercial sex workers what periods mean to them.
जो काम है ना हमारा हमेशा रहता है, जुकाम सर्दी, 3 दिन पीरियड्स आता है, वही टाइम में हम लोग घर में आराम करते हैं।
अच्छा लगता है, घर पे टाइम पास करता है, घर का काम धंधा करता है।
For women in the sex trade, periods are a welcome pause, as 3 days of periods means 3 days of no work. On International Women's Day, India's leading sanitary napkin brand Stayfree launched a first-of-its-kind initiative that helps women in the sex trade learn the skills of a new trade on their free period days. And Project Free Period was born. India's leading anti-trafficking NGO Prerna and a team of expert trainers came together to create a unique curriculum. Designed to generate economic sustenance, the courses were condensed into easy 3-day modules for the women to learn one period at a time.
আমার ছেলে বড় হয়ে আগে গিয়ে বলতে পারবে আমার মা কি কাজ করছে।
Only a year after its humble start in Mumbai's Kamatipura, Project Free Period has expanded and evolved into a nationwide platform that's pioneering conversations around 2 of India's biggest taboos: periods, and prostitution. This year, we are taking Project Free Period out of a single neighborhood and reaching out to every commercial sex worker across the country by partnering with more local NGOs and volunteers. We are also creating self-learning video modules of our courses that can be shared and downloaded digitally, and giving away compact toolkits for those who are unable to reach our classrooms. Here's your chance to help Project Free Period become bigger and better. Nominate an NGO that could be interested in partnering with us, or simply share this video to help us spread the word. Because Project Free Period is only as strong as the number of sex workers it empowers, one period at a time.
I believe work of this nature, it is effective because it helps the brand cut through if it's done in a distinctive and consistent way over time. I think that's the other important insight, which is that we chase headlines a lot in our line of work, and we try and sometimes get away with doing things that are a little bit superficial, but the really impactful, effective work is work that you commit to and stay committed to over time, and consistency has as much of a role to play, I think, in great outcomes as creative brilliance. And being able to get that balance right is really what our job is. And I believe on Stayfree we've been able to get that right more often than not, and it's a credit to everyone who's touched the work, including the client team. And I think in an interesting way, it shaped much of, I said at a personal level, but also the kind of company we want to be. You'll see a lot of work at the agency focused on deep, substantive efforts around diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think that sensitization, in a sense, has happened for Rahul, who's my creative partner, myself, and a few other people on the leadership team, that this work is not just about one campaign or one brand, it's our life's work, right? So what we do at the agency every day to create the right kind of environment, what I do as a husband or a father at home, now, and there's an interesting project we've done. We have a focused effort on the power of creativity to achieve positive social impact, organized around an entity called DDB for Good. And over the last 3 years, with help from the Miss Universe organization, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and a few other, the Global Citizen effort, Plan International, the folks at Omnicom have all come together to create an IP around the global menstrual equity, which was championed by Harnaz, who was until recently Miss Universe. And that work it transcends brand and, in a sense, just immediate commercial outcomes in the interest of trying to bring different groups of people together, institutions together, to be able to drive this change. So thank you for indulging me. Long answer to a short question, but I hope it kind of gives you a window, and your listeners a window into how important this work is, of course, for the brand and the business, but for a whole host of other reasons as well.
Absolutely. And Aditya, like you were saying, how it can shape, our entire relationship with a phenomenon, and how we perceive things can change, like it happened to you. And as I was reading about the case and watching the videos, I was like, my God, like you said, we all think we come from progressive, liberal families, but as a woman, I can say this is something that never gets talked about. Mm-hmm. And you just observe as a young girl that this is not to be talked about, and you don't. Exactly. Even, whether you need to or you don't. And this whole shame that has been talked about, around those days, and how it impacts in terms of your relationship with your own self, because that's your coming of age as a woman, like your understanding. So how powerful it is, and it is unimaginable to start having a conversation at that point in time and not excluding 50% of the society, the person who champions you, your dad. You know, that relationship, he's like your biggest fan, your mentor, your champion, you know, and it's your relationship with authority, actually.
Yes, exactly.
You know, and you learn to not be open, and they learn to, you know, distance themselves.
Shut
you
it
know,
away.
and this is, and your that whole social experiment. I keep thinking about it. You know, how did this kind of a simulation happen? You know, like there is the father, there is the little, you know, 12, 13-year-old daughter, and the actual situation has been created that, okay, you don't want to talk about it, you're hesitating, she's all ears, and at that tender moment, you facilitated, you know, like they say, it takes little, but at that time, that little can change the entire thing, and it's so powerful. You know, the more I think about it, I'm amazed at the difference it must be making, and it can make, you know, by including fathers, and the way it's been shown that, okay, it's just one conversation, that one little step you have to do, that's it.
Exactly. It's just a period. I think that's the thing. It's about normalizing it. You know, we kind of make such a big deal about this subject, and but the consequences of not having that conversation are so deeply damaging to society. Like you said, it excludes it. It's a huge part of the reason why so many women find themselves at the margins of conversations. You made a wonderful observation about how this is really basically about power and authority. This is about how power flows through every unit in which society is organized. It starts, of course, about how you relate to yourself individually, as a woman or as a man, and then your place in the family as a daughter or a brother or a husband or a wife or a father or a mother. And then you start to see that play out in the dynamics at a family level, at a community level. You see that happen then at the workplace, and then everything that follows from the fact that very early at that first stage, when a girl has her period, how is she made to feel about it, and how do we deal with that moment, right? As a society. And then, so to kind of catalyze that, whether we do it through a social experiment or through a beautiful piece of film, or, you know, the work that we put out in by way of our social media conversations on the subject, whichever way it happens, it has, if we are true and honest to that vulnerability, it can make for very, very powerful work. And after all these years of having worked on the category, on the brand, it still moves me, in some cases moves me to tears, to see some of that work, because you're right, it is deeply moving, it is very emotive, it's very powerful, and it's very real.
Thank you. This way. Good.
डॉटर से ऑडिशन टिकट
तुमसे एक बात करनी थी।
शायद तुम्हारी मम्मी ने इस बारे में ऑलरेडी तुमसे बात की हो,
लेकिन मैं भी बात करना चाहूंगा।
सॉरी, I messed up the script. Let's do it again.
कुछ डाउट होगा तो ऑकवर्ड फील मत करना, पूछ लेना। ओके
ओके, बट बात किस बारे में करनी है?
कैमरे के सामने
बेटा स्क्रिप्ट दिखाना एक बार।
ये सब
नहीं पापा करते हैं, ट्राई तो करते हैं।
periods what do you know about periods?
Not much, किसी ने कुछ बताया ही नहीं, पर मैंने साइंस की बुक में पढ़ा है।
अच्छा,
periods is something you'll get soon.
And you will get every month afterwards.
मतलब तुम्हारी बॉडी में कुछ चेंजेस होंगे
और तुम थोड़ा ब्लीड भी करोगे.
मतलब खून.
घबरो नको बेटा ये एक नेचुरल प्रोसेस है.
In fact, it is good for you.
How is it bleeding good for my body?
Good question. Because that's the way you get rid of stuff your body doesn't need.
मतलब ये चीज मम्मा को भी होती है, आपको और इवन भैया को भी.
नहीं, सिर्फ मम्मा को होती है, तुमको होती है, भैया को मुझे नहीं होगी.
जब तुम्हारी एज की थी तब से होता है मम्मी को.
दीदी
को भी होता है.
ब्लीडिंग होगी तो 3-4 दिन घर पे रहना पड़ेगा.
नहीं, तुम खेलने जा सकते हो, स्कूल जा सकते हो, डांस क्लासेस जा सकते हो, सब कुछ कर सकते हो.
तर कोणाला माहिती नाही पडणार ना.
नहीं बेटा कोणालाच काही करणार नाही.
कभी कभी थकावट होगी, कभी थोड़ा बैक पेन हो, बट क्या है.
और ये कितनी देर तक होता है?
3-4 दिन. बट डोंट वरी, उसके बाद अपने आप रुक जाता है.
हाँ.
It's completely natural.
It's totally normal.
It's just a period.
सॉरी वो स्टार्टिंग में थोड़ा सा.
Thank you.
We have so much more to do on this subject as not just as advertising professionals, but as citizens of the world.
Yeah, and I loved how it got integrated with, okay, fathers need to know about this more, and Menstrupedia and everything, and the way it got constructed, and of course, the views and the registrations that happened. So awesome. And of course, it has won so many awards. This year, FE and it's been, Cannes and all of that. But naturally, you see, it's impactful work, it's effective work. Yes. And like you said, it's the work that society needs. It really solves something for us.
The recognition at the shows, whether it's at Cannes or at Spikes or at the FEs, is all a tribute to unexpected works, isn't it? The fact that there's often this, for some reason, this false separation, this line that's drawn between creativity and effectiveness. In fact, they're deeply connected. If properly practiced creativity, at Bernbach said it, is the most effective tool that a business can use. So it's not about shunning creativity or the shows. It's about ensuring that you're practicing it properly, and that you are ensuring that it is not reckless or indulgent, but intended to drive good outcomes, and done with that, I guess, sense of responsibility.
And like you so beautifully said, that creativity is the force, and the unexpected works that's why it's energizing, if I'm saying this right, that people will take notice, but at the heart of it there is something deep, and with a lot of substance, and it never is superficial.
Exactly right. And pretty much always for at the heart of creativity is insight, right? The most creative work in the world generally tends to be the most insightful, or it addresses something that is fundamental to our nature, to our being, and that speaks to us.
So now we come to McDonald's, and like you were talking about, Aditya, DEI. But when I was going through all the work that has happened just this year, I think there's lots of interesting work, like this whole memory bites and this burra. The burra was very interesting because I'm a Sardani, and I said, oh my God, they got it so right. Butter chicken and butter paneer, and they do burra. I think, my God, it's amazing. So because it's the heart of, what that Punjabi thing is, and just one word just kind of says it, what it's going to bring to you, what you should feel and what's all about. So awesome. There's the BTS meal also, and then of course there is the Eatqual.
Yeah.
So what would you like to talk about?
Well, we'll talk about a few things because there is so much to discuss on McDonald's. And what an incredible story of a global brand that organizes itself in such a remarkable way that everywhere in the world that you see the arches, it feels familiar and yet a little bit different, right? And I think that the ability to be able to do that in the way that system McDonald's is designed, the discipline around how the brand is run and operated everywhere in the world, it's done basically through local partnerships, right? But there's an integrity to McDonald's anywhere in the world, and to great McDonald's advertising anywhere in the world. And what is brilliant is that it's done without a kind of guidelines and central control, right? From one mothership that says this is what this is okay and this is not okay.
Really? That's awesome.
This is hundreds of teams across the world, and different agencies, by the way, different partners, all with an intuitive understanding and a sense. There are some loose, obviously, guidelines around what you can and cannot do and what the brand is, but the work that is created is all created and put out in the world by the local teams that understand cultural nuance, but know that this feels like it is McDonald's and this feels like it's not. And there are people, of course, who hold this, all of this together with ketchup in their veins, as they put it. And through the journey of McDonald's, I mean, it's also now the last 10 years a wildly successful commercial enterprise as well, right? And I think that's the other thing, that we think of it as a incredible, consistent, enduring brand, but it's also a hugely successful, highly valued business for the markets. So when you look at the body of work on McDonald's that we've created, and we launched the brand in India in the late 90s, DDB's relationship with McDonald's goes back many decades, like our other great long-term partnership with Volkswagen. And we've produced some of our best work as DDB on this very brand. So the opportunity to shape McDonald's in India is one that we don't take for granted. Our teams are always excited about hitting a global standard of work on the brand, on one of the most iconic brands in the world. And I think the body of work that you've referenced, work like Eatqual, Bura, or Memory Bites, it bridges the range of work that needs to be done to put the brand out there in a meaningful and powerful way, right? So you'll see work that drives McDelivery, you'll see work that helps reinforce our presence in the South market where chicken is the big draw. You'll see it, in the North, in a very typically, in a unique way that speaks to that culture, as you've rightly picked up. And then, of course, we have a responsibility as a brand as well, right, to move conversation forward. I think the work on Eatqual does that so beautifully. The simple insight, it's one of the great joys of McDonald's. It's an everyday pleasure that everyone must enjoy, right? And all of us who have the use of both our hands take for granted that simple joy of eating a burger. And the observation that for people who don't have the use of one hand, struggle to conventionally hold a burger, and just that simple moment of simple, easy enjoyment, you can solve for it with a packaging intervention where you can hold the burger with one hand and go for it. And that Eatqual pack is now available across McDonald's stores, including as an option for delivery. And making that accessible is really the genesis of that work. And then, of course, the advertising to drive attention to it follows. That's, if you've seen it, quite powerful and emotive as well.
I wanna make a little sunshine for you. Count the smiles for me and you. I try and do the things we could do. All I try is to make it through. So I'll try and I'll keep on trying to win this game. 'Cause we are a little different, but we are the same. 'Cause we are the same. 'Cause we are the same. I'll try and I'll keep on trying to win this game. 'Cause we are a little different, but we are the same. 'Cause we are the same. 'Cause we are the same. 'Cause we are the same.
So you have the range of work on a brand that speaks to everyone, that has, has the everyman or woman at the heart of its design. It must speak to everyone in that sense, and yet feel like it is McDonald's. I think that's what the challenge on it is, right? All of the work feels natural. It feels authentic. It feels like it could happen, if you know what I mean. There's a element of that in all good McDonald's work, which doesn't feel ham-handed or ham-fisted or forced, or trying too hard, and that's how it feels when you're in a McDonald's too, and that's how the advertising must feel.
Absolutely. And this whole Aditya that you talked about initially about the brand, global, but everybody feels it's their own.
Yeah.
That's amazing intent. And at the food and how it's presented and whatever is behind it, it's making it possible in terms of the experience. And I think that whole framework, this whole emotion advantage that they have been made clear on now is what is it that you are activating at an emotional level, because all the decisions at a subconscious level are when you're clear about how it makes you feel. Exactly. And that clarity is such a big power. And I love the intent, because when I was looking at the campaign, this whole thing of equal, we are all equal, and the disability is not going to put them back. And what it can mean for a parent to see the child, not feeling dependent and feeling happy just like any other child. It's so powerful. And Aditya, I was doing one podcast with somebody from US where so the boy is a special child, like he's 18 now, and he's an entrepreneur. And crazy socks. They've been making crazy socks, and the father is totally with him. And he was saying that he cannot communicate that well, my child, but he's so creative. He's a better entrepreneur than I am. Together, they're becoming a force. They make sure they recruit, disabled, for lack of a better word, people. Yes. They make sure, because they're more sincere, they're more committed, they're more regular. He was just making a stand for it, and he's made these talks in association with White House also. That we are the ones who don't let them feel equal,
Yes.
They are a stand for themselves. So just
Yes.
a little bit, if we make them available, there is no stopping them. And at a food, at a joy level,
Yes.
If a brand makes it available in such a unpretentious manner, like, that's what is needed, no? I loved it.
No, thank you for that. We love the work too, and what we're really happy about in all of these pieces of work we discuss is that they are integral to what we want to do with the brand and the business. They are not one-offs, sideshows, designed to be creative for the sake of being creative. No, they are all manifestations, representations of the kind of the core, the driving force behind these brands and businesses, right? Like you rightly observed, McDonald's is really about everybody, right? It's about everyone feeling, and some of the most memorable McDonald's advertising across the world stems from that. And Eatqual is totally consistent with that approach and that thinking. So the form, is in some cases a packaging solution, in some cases a piece of advertising or a social experiment, but it all has an integrity. To go back to the theory of how what we do really works, the fact that people don't necessarily have the time that we think they do to engage with us, and we have to be able to cut through to get noticed, to create those memories over time consistently, and the emotion and the feeling is a root to that, and then the anchoring and the association with the arches or whatever else it is. It's actually as simple as that. That's what makes the commerce happen, and we have to try and keep it as tight and as simple as possible so that equation works as often as it possibly can.
Yeah. And I'm sure all of us have seen the movie of McDonald's. I'm talking my audiences. Yeah, it's legendary. I mean, this is legendary. Yeah, I just have to say this line. I am loving it. Now we can move. We can't move to the next brand till I say that.
Please do. It's a great line, isn't it?
Isn't it?
You can do the ta-ra-ta-ta-ta as well if you'd like.
Yeah. You did it. Thank you. I needed more practice there. You were saying something, Aditya?
No, I was just doing ta-ra-ta-ta-ta.
Again. Wasn't that another moment Aditya gave us? Okay. Now there's another brand that is changing the game. It's disrupting and ever so by its actions and intention and where the focus is. And we're talking about Meesho. Yeah. So e-com became everything in our lives in the COVID. So we saw how what 10x, 20x it grew. But before that only, Meesho had started focusing on the small business owner. But what a courageous thing to do when, such established players are there, and every now and then, there's a shakeout in the category and the established ones kind of eat up the smaller ones, even the smaller ones who are there on Amazon, are saying that, we're just little pegs. We don't know when, we won't be able to withstand their own products, their own, labels. So how did, in this dynamic space with Amazon, Flipkart, also, eventually approaching small sellers, how did Meesho carve its niche, a distinct identity? How did it capture the imagination of the small town people?
Yeah, it's a remarkable story, isn't it? In fact, I think it's a great example of the power of brand building and advertising, and what a company is able to achieve if they commit to that investment and that journey. To think that 3 or 4 years ago, people hadn't even heard of this brand, right? And today, in this country, many parts of the market, they're doing the volumes of transactions that some of these other well-established brands you've mentioned are doing is quite extraordinary. We had the I had the joy of meeting this group of people around the time that they were getting noticed as a social commerce company. That's the genesis, actually. So the first piece of work you see them do, we helped them take those first. We were part of that journey of taking those first steps towards telling that story when they were primarily a social commerce company. And that work, interestingly, is rooted in this very observation that you had of in small town India. There's a whole a bundle of entrepreneurial energy channeled through women doing work with their friends circle of curating shopping experiences, right? Helping them find the right clothes, the right accessories for their homes, the right kind of home decor. And that was the original insight around Meesho, right? To make that connection between women and give them that opportunity to be entrepreneurs in their own right. And then on the back of that success and that first piece of work that you are referencing was, I think it was now about three odd years ago. And the Meesho you see today has come such a long way from that kind of platform for small business to a full-fledged e-commerce company that everyone is taking very seriously, right? Including, and this is not just about Flipkart and Amazon. There's also a whole we worked for 15 years on Big Bazaar and in a sense helped shape organized retail in this country. So we, understand how buying works and the richness of behavioral insight around different categories, different regions, different occasions. And that's what Meesho's journey has been about, to see that, the work in bringing sellers and women entrepreneurs together in a social commerce context, seeing that success and then realizing that there's room for the underdog in this category, and that you can, if you go back to the basics of buying and the motivations behind them, that there's a whole generation of people who haven't really transacted online in this way. They may be consuming content, but they haven't really embraced this way of buying. And that if we speak to that audience, there is growth there, right? And it's extraordinary. It's been 3 years really to see what the brand's been able to achieve. Vidit, who's the founder, Megha, who's the head of growth, or exceptional people, very nice people too, who are doing this with a rare passion and commitment, and to see them succeed is really, really wonderful.
Yeah. And like you said, that the gap, I think the key was identifying that gap, because the Bharat was ignored, and
yes,
you help Bharat come in the foreground.
Yes.
And then Amazon and Flipkart also said, "Oh, let's talk to them." But the whole part of the tier 2, tier 3 towns and how they buy, and how they shop and how they save, and that campaign, Aditya, shows it beautifully. How they've put every little money and how, and you were talking about middle class right now. I mean, that's another value. The one is moderation, and the other is that save. Save. पैर उतने फैलाओ जितनी चादर है, and you be ready for the rainy day. Because that's how being middle class and living in the country is all about. So that campaign also, where the money becomes a dress, little savings. That's such a
lovely spot, isn't it?
Yeah. And
that, and then there's a beautiful piece around bulk buying or wholesale buying, and that kind of an approach and the value, the a shorthand for value, right?
Yeah.
Into the source, or where you
Yeah. Where did this come from? Where did this come from? Then you
ulta, the ulta
yeah.
buying, that kind of stuff. It's all, yeah, that's right. It's all based on those fundamental insights and behaviors, and this thing of that constant tension of we keep talking about aspiration and modernity and wanting more, but there is a huge value in prudence and frugality in doing the right thing, and it's a lived and real experience in this country. It's the same thing with the kind of cliched portrayal of youth as being rebellious and wanted, but the truth is that many of them are studying really hard, wanting to do to get their grades, be respectful of their parents, respectful of their community, want the validation of those around them. That's as real. So that tension, that push and pull, is where the artwork, where the craft is, right? And being able to get that right. And I think Meesho is a good example of that tension being exploited.
Yeah, and so beautifully, like you said, that's the power of advertising. All those values got transferred to brand Meesho, and hence, it became Hamara brand for the middle class. This thing, and that distributor campaign that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Like, she's gone to the source. She's so resourceful. Let's eat.
Yes.
And she's going to cut down the margins and
Exactly.
transferring that value to its audience. And
That's
that
right.
is why it's cheaper. And that is why, because,
Exactly.
that's why it's so right for a middle class tier 2 person. And that's been beautifully shown in one campaign.
Sahi laga hai, it's called.
Sahi laga. Sahi laga. That line, oh yes. Yes. Tik laga lo,
And I said it mirrors that kind of very real behavior there.
Yeah.
Wow. What is that?
This is rapid fire, signature rapid fire.
Wow. This is the time I have to start to worry.
No, not at all.
Oh.
Okay, worry.
Okay.
Because if you take time and if you elaborate, I will shoot.
Okay, done.
Mother's best advice.
Time makes everything better.
Alternate profession could have been.
Journalism.
What would you do on Mars for fun?
Read a book.
As per your wife, your most often used phrase.
A doll. I call her doll, so I use the word doll a lot.
She'd be happy to hear this.
Only points there on the side.
We'll give it to you. Okay. A book you'd like to gift to all your friends.
Oh, wow. So many. This is an unfair question, and you can't ask me on a rapid fire. I have like 10 answers. I'll give you one right now because I was planning on gifting it to somebody. A brilliant book called On Warn by an Australian cricket journalist called Gideon Hay. Everyone must read. Anyone with interest in cricket and test cricket must read it.
Okay. What would you tell your 18-year-old self?
To not take myself too seriously.
Okay. What is your favorite childhood memory?
Again, it's a difficult one. I have lots of them, but I will say that the drives back. My dad was an Air Force man. We were posted. Dad was posted in a village called Sambra outside of Belgaum, and every other weekend we'd make a trip into Belgaum city to experience it. In our old Premier Padmani, my dad, my mom, my sister, and I driving back home in the gloaming as the sun sets, listening to music and being together, and not wanting that drive to end. I think I could hold on to that till the day I die.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. And Aditya, when you said city, it reminded me of Maika.
It was worse if it's possible. Sambra village. It was really like that, like Shella. It was like Shella. Sambra mein the.
Okay. If you were to devote the rest of your life to philanthropy, what cause would you choose?
It would be there are a few areas. One would be in conservation and nature in some form. And I would love to find a way to do something with art, music, and sport for communities that need help.
Wow, wow. Okay. What is your greatest joy?
Time with my family.
Okay. How would you like strangers to remember you?
As a person who always did his best and tried to do it the right way.
Okay. What's a lesson that took you a long time to learn?
Yeah, you can never achieve anything of consequence on your own.
What's one missed opportunity you wish you could have a second chance at?
Sports broadcasting, maybe.
Really?
Maybe.
Oh, this is okay. This is interesting. Oh my
Either that or
God.
theater, I don't know.
So much interest you have. I love
I thoroughly enjoyed being here. It was wonderful, and I love being at the sharp end of these conversations. As I love the name and the idea behind the show. And thank you for having me on the show. And I have to say that what makes it interesting is the eclectic nature of it. That you open the door to different types of voices. You listen deeply, which is rare and precious. I wish we would all do more of it. And it is as good a reason as any to listen to this show.